Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Early Edge. We are brought to you by BetMGM. Make it legendary. I'm stepping in for the team as host. I'm going to talk a lot of college football with you, or more likely, it's going to be the analysts on the show. Let's go ahead and bring them on because we have so many games to cover. College football, week 11. We've got Emory Hunt, we got Tom Casale, and we've got Mike McClure. And like I said, gentlemen, we've got a lot of ground to cover. We're going to start with the ACC, and we're going to start with Wake Forest against number 12 Virginia. Emory, I saw this line 6.5 at BetMGM, 47.5 point total. And I thought it was a little too many points to lay for UVA. Tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, you're wrong on this one. Here's the difference. UVA only has to really focus on this run game of Wake Forest. If they can stop the run, no one back there could beat them throwing the football. And I think that's going to be the reason why I lay these 6.5 points with the Cavaliers. On top of the fact, with the new college football rankings that are out, they are in the mix. They're right there in the postseason. So they understand what's ahead of them. Now they're undefeated in conference play despite losing to NC State. So they have a one-up on Georgia Tech. So they got to keep that pace. So I'd like them to do that and do it in emphatic fashion. We are now in statement win season, style point season, and Virginia will do just that against Wake Forest.
Yeah, actually, Virginia number 14, not number 12 here. Emory Hunt, you've got the other side of the coin here. You do think it's too many points to lay.
Listen, I don't have a strong opinion on this game, but Emory kind of said it. I don't think Wake Forest is going to throw the ball against them. They don't throw it very well, but I do think it's going to be a close game. And listen, I was watching the selection show. They put Virginia in there, and I was like, okay. Now you get a whole different kind of pressure, though. And Virginia's there; they're in the mix for a playoff spot. It'll be interesting to see how they react. That's not a program that used to be in there, but I'll say this: the ACC is terrible. Terrible. And whatever, please put two teams in the college football playoffs. I could use that money to pay for my Christmas.
Mike, instead of taking a side here, we're actually taking a total. Talk to me about the 47.5.
Yeah, I actually think the number's a little too low here. I went over 47.5. We just watched Wake Forest surrender essentially this many points to Florida State. We've seen Virginia have the ability to score, even put up points against a team like Florida State in their matchup earlier. So for me, it's just a touch too low. Not going to get in the way of picking a winner. I just think this is kind of a back and forth game. I think these teams are relatively equal, but at this margin, considering the location of the game, would lean on the Virginia side, I suppose. But for me, it's just the total. I thought the number should have been 50.5.
This one Saturday at 7 o'clock. And so is the team you just mentioned, Mike. Florida State at Clemson. Clemson laying 2.5 points. It's a 56.5 point total. Mike, I'm going to start with you here. What are we on?
Another over, actually, a big number, 56.5. But to me, this one is one that is ultimately played in the upper 20s, mid 30s, potentially on both sides. I think it's a competitive contest, but I really just like the total. You look at Clemson, they've had the ability to score, but really haven't had that defensive ability to stop anyone. And Florida State, I could basically say the same thing. They find themselves in shootouts in these kind of games. So I think the offenses ultimately went out here.
Tom, you agree?
Yeah, I think one of the surprises this year is not just how bad Clemson's been, but how bad the defense has been. You know, people like me thought that defense was going to be a strength. And as Mike mentioned, it hasn't been. And you look at the other side, Florida State, they can't stop anybody right now. And I will say this will be an interesting game. I wouldn't be surprised if both of these teams have new coaches next year. I could see Dabo saying, I'm going to go into TV like Bruce Pearl and Nick Saban and then take that money. But I think you're going to have an entertaining, exciting game here. I think it's going to be scored in the 60s.
Emory, is it possible for both of these teams to lose? And if not, who are you picking?
I mean, listen, it's a disappointment bowl here presented by the number 2 Kit Kat seed in your candy bracket, right? When you think about what we look at in Clemson, this going to come down to which coach can you trust in this big game situation. And in this disappointment bowl of a big game, I would lean toward Dabo Swinney. So, and the point total, I'm not the point total, the point spread is low enough to where I can trust Clemson to bounce back from that loss against Duke. They won't let one loss become two. And I think they'll beat Florida State. So I will lay the 2.5 points.
Emory, you mentioned the candy bracket. I mean, I guess we got to let the cat out of the bag and let people know what we're talking about. There's a candy. I'm going to be breaking this down tonight, believe it or not. You might have to zoom in to see this, but we've got a March Madness style candy bracket that I'm going to be breaking down at 8 o'clock tonight. And ladies and gentlemen, you can kind of see if you zoom in there, the one seeds. We got Snickers, we've got Milky Way as a 1 seed, and somehow Butterfinger a 16 seed, which is absolutely crazy. Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. Check it out. There's a lot going on here, but maybe you want to print this out and I don't know, maybe you want to fill it out yourself. It's always madness season, especially when it's college football season and college basketball season that's about to start. And that brings me to sportsline.com/join. Ladies and gentlemen, we got college basketball season underway. We've got college football, of course, NFL, NBA has started. There's so much going on, and that doesn't even include UFC, all of those things. You can get picks for all of them, including Champions League with soccer on sportsline.com. If you're not a member, go to sportsline.com/join and type in the promo code WINNERS. If you do that, you get 60% off the annual plan. It includes everything Sportsline has to offer, including the Sportsline Discord, where there are thousands of people right now chatting it up on a lot of these college football picks and much more. Well, we got to get to more college football picks. We covered the ACC mildly. We're going to really dive into the Big Ten coming up next. We got Indiana and Penn State, Oregon and Iowa, Washington and Wisconsin. It's all coming up next on the Early Edge College Football Picks Show. We're back on the College Football Best Bets Show for Week 11. It's the Early Edge, and it's sponsored by BetMGM. Make it legendary. Let's go to the Big Ten. Legendary season so far, Mike McClure, for Indiana. They're a 15.5-point favorite at Penn State. Didn't think I'd be saying that before this year started. 48.5-point total. What's the play in this one?
Not a popular one for sure, but it's going to be Indiana's team total here under 32.5. Look, they continue to smash their team total, scoring in the 50s quite often. This is the spot where I could see it coming to an end just a little bit. When I look at Penn State, while it certainly hasn't been the season that they wanted, it's still not the easiest place to go play an early game on a Saturday morning like this. I think that Penn State's still good enough defensively at times when they want to be. I think they'll be motivated at home with the crowd. I think that they can still run the football just enough here to limit possessions in this game. So I'm going to go under on the team total for Indiana. They may shut Penn State down pretty significantly in this one, but I think that 30, 31 become extremely key numbers in this kind of matchup. So under 32.5 on the Indiana side.
Tom, you've got a pick that's very much correlated to this. You have the game total under, correct?
Yeah, listen, I thought Penn State fought hard their last two games. Ohio State just pulled away because they're a better team right now. But I agree with Mike. I think Penn State's defense at home in their last big game of the year rises to the occasion. I think this could be an uglier kind of game. I don't think Penn State's going to score a ton. So I could see this being like a 27-10, 27-13 kind of game. And where you're going to want to bet against Penn State is next week at Michigan State after playing Ohio State and Indiana and having such a bad season. I'll be surprised if they get off the bus next week.
Emory, perfect timing for the graphic we just saw from our team over at CBS Sports. The worst cover percentage in college football. If I was reading that correctly, I think we saw Penn State 1-7 against the spread. You're on the favorite.
Yeah, this is a situation where all three of us can cash this ticket with our bets because I will lay the 15.5 points with Indiana. Indiana can win this game 30-7, and we all cash. And so I just don't see where Penn State can find enough in the passing game. The run game is really going to try to hang their hats, but that's running into the teeth of this Indiana defense. I think Indiana at the point of attack is better this year than they were last year. And they're also about showing everybody that still has some semblance of doubt about this football team that they are not to be played with. So they are out for blood against anyone on the schedule. They are trying to break the scoreboard. So I will lay this 15.5 points comfortably with the Hoosiers.
All right, we're taking Indiana, but we're certainly leaning on unders in this game as well. Let's go to Oregon -6 at Iowa. You know, I think people look at this spread and they see Oregon ranked number 9 in the country here, maybe thinking this is a spot to take Oregon. Tom, I wonder, do we think Iowa can hang with them?
Yeah, so a few weeks ago, Emory and I were on a show together talking about Texas A&M and LSU. And we both said everything sets up for LSU, right? and we both gave a big but. We just thought Texas A&M was better. And I feel the same thing here. Like, I get it. Iowa's at home at Kinnick Stadium. For some reason, offenses go to die there. But to me, this isn't the same spot where they got Indiana earlier in the year, coming off the big win against Illinois. Oregon had a week off. They had a lackluster performance against Wisconsin. Dan Lanning wasn't happy. I like taking good coaches when they're angry about something. They're rested. I think Iowa puts up a fight for a while, but it's just too much offensive skill position talent for Oregon, and they pull away and cover.
Emory, I agree with the take. I do feel like the narrative of Dan Lanning, and maybe it's not a narrative. Maybe we can apply, some stats to this, like we just saw with the graphic. But Dan Lanning is a cover machine. He seems like the type of guy that will be able to walk into Iowa and just get it figured out, cover the spread, and get out.
Yeah, they could win this game 10-0, and Iowa could play as great as they can, but they still struggle to score. I think what's lost in how Iowa put up points against Minnesota last week was Minnesota kept giving them the game, giving them points and giving them turnovers, and they had a special teams turnover. Everything just kept coming up Iowa outside of their offense, right? So this game, they face a better defense, a more dynamic offense. So I don't see them scoring as much. I do see Oregon getting at least 2 touchdowns. Again, they could win this game 14-3, and we can definitely cash both Tom and I my bet right here.
Tom, not Tom, Mike, is it 3 for 3? Are we taking Oregon?
Yeah, 3 for 3 here. I like Oregon. I get that points are a premium anytime you talk about this team being Iowa and the location of the game. I would still set the line at 7.5, firmly on the other side of a touchdown here. When I look at Oregon, they have a distinct advantage. I mean, I rate them out as the number 3 team in the country in terms of EPA per play on a net basis. And when I look at Iowa, it's the offense that struggles, 124th in college football offensively. And the problem is that's all because of the passing game. And if they fall behind it all and have to throw, they're not going to have success against this Oregon defense. So like the guys mentioned, it may only take 13 points for Oregon to cover this spread. And the worry that I would have for Iowa is if Oregon gets to 20, that's good night. That's game over here in this spot, in my opinion.
Yeah, totally agree. I'll be on Oregon as well. Let's move to Washington, laying 11.5 points at Wisconsin. This one at 4:30, that previous game at 3:30 on Saturday. Michael, I'll start with you here. Are we laying the points with Washington? Are we looking at a total of 44.5?
This is definitely my least favorite game that we're talking about this week here, Sia. I don't really want a big part of Wisconsin, but to me, the number itself, 11 and 11.5, just being such a key number when you're talking about being through the touchdown, through the 8, through the 10, and then through the 11. I just think there are many scenarios where you could see a slower start from Washington on the road in this one. I think that Wisconsin, while we've seen some disappointing performances from this team, I think that they are good enough here to sneak within this number. I would set the number, and where I wouldn't play it is if it were 10, but at 11.5, Wisconsin lean.
And Emory, you're willing to lay the 11.5 with Washington?
Yeah, this is 2 things. One, this is another one of these games where if it gets ugly, we may see another coaching change on the Wisconsin side. And it's quiet as kept. Washington, I feel like, has played every Big Ten game outside of Ohio State on the road. So they are battle tested in terms of being on the road and playing good football. So I like the matchup here. Their offense I can trust more so than whatever Wisconsin puts out there for their 11 on that side of the ball. I think that's going to be the key here. Wisconsin cannot score, and Washington sees a chance to put another Big Ten team away and make a statement for the old Pac-12. So I will lead the points here.
Tom, you're not interested in a side, but you are taking a total?
Yeah, I'm with Mike. I think this is a tough one to call. I think the line is pretty good at 11.5. I do have the total more around 46.5, so I think there's a couple of points of value there. I know it's tough betting an over with Wisconsin. They don't score much. But I do think what Mike said, I agree with, is maybe you get a fast start at home. You get an early touchdown on the board from Wisconsin. If we can get that, I think over 44.5 is in play.
Yeah, certainly a low total of 44.5. All right, gentlemen, we got so many more games to get to. Big 12, SEC, it's all coming up. This next game, we'll get to it after the break. BYU, Texas Tech. I'm very interested in all of your takes there. But a lot of Big 12 games to cover, including Kansas, Arizona, Iowa State, and TCU. And then we move to the SEC. A lot of big games there, too. Coming up next on the Early Edge College Football Picks Show. We're back on the early edge, and it's time to move to the Big 12 with Emory Hunt, Tom Casale, and Mike McClure. I am very intrigued by this BYU-Texas Tech game, particularly the spread. When you see BYU here ranked number 7, going on the road to Texas Tech, Texas Tech laying 9.5 points. Tom, I'll start with you. Definitely a contrast in styles. I feel like this line is telling us that BYU's luck is running out a little bit here.
Yeah, it's interesting because this reminds me of a game from last week at Utah and Cincinnati. I saw that line and I was like, geez, I kind of like Cincinnati here, but it feels like this game's already been played. And you look at this line and they're almost begging you to take BYU. I think these are two good teams, but I have Texas Tech rated higher. And the thing that points me in their direction is this. There hasn't been a huge game in Lubbock, Texas in a while. And if you've ever been to Lubbock, Texas, that's one of those places, if you go in wearing the other team's shirt, you might not get out alive. That place is going to be raucous. I think it's going to be competitive, but I think the strength of Texas Tech on the lines, they pull away in the fourth quarter and cover this number.
Emory, you're on the other side of it.
Because I think on the line of scrimmage is where, uniquely enough, BYU can match up with Texas Tech. And Tom is right, because this got me last week with Cincinnati. I was like, there's no way with all this on the line, the Bearcats go up to Utah and get blown out. Well, they got blown out. But this BYU team, I think, is better than Cincinnati, especially up front. They can hold their own versus Texas Tech, who has done a phenomenal job on the line of scrimmage. And with all of that being the factor and being the case and being at stake, I'm a fall sucker again. So I will take BYU plus the 9.5 to keep this one close.
Mike, it's up to you to break the tie here. I mean, this is one of those lines, and I understand Texas Tech is really good too. We're talking about 7 and 8 here, but this is one of those lines where I feel like I almost have to lay the points because the market is telling me that Texas Tech is this much better than BYU. But either way, break the tie for us.
Yeah, look, it's been a great season for BYU so far. I think it's pretty clear they're a little overrated at this point based on competition. I say it all the time, though. You can only play who they line up in front of you. And there's a lot to be said for no matter who's out there in front of you, taking care of business and winning football games. For me, it's just Texas Tech, the talent that they've got on both lines of scrimmage. It's why we've been on them really all season, is they have the best defensive line in the Big 12, in my opinion. And then the quarterback situation. Morton is back. They started off the season so hot, got injured. They still looked fine through a lot of their schedule, dropped the game to Arizona State. He's back. They just put up 43 points on the road against Kansas State last week. Kansas State's a team that's been up and down, but coming into last week, Kansas State had really rounded into form and was playing great football for the most part. So I was impressed by that win. And ultimately, I just think that they can kind of run away with this one in the second half, a lot like they did on the road in Manhattan last week.
All right, let's move on to, it looks like 2 for Texas Tech, 1 for BYU. Let's move on to Kansas and Arizona. Arizona laying 4.5 points, 56.5 point total. Both these teams coming off wins. Arizona absolutely rocked Colorado, I believe it was 52-17. Then, of course, Kansas beating Oklahoma State. I don't know that either of those wins tell us a ton. Emory, are we laying the points? Are we looking at a total? What's happening here?
Laying the points for Arizona, man. I love how they're playing this year. This is the team that we thought we were going to get last year with how well Noah Fafita had played the year before. And so he struggled last year. This year, he's back on track and throwing the football really well. They're spreading the ball around. Defensively, I think they're much better than they were last year, despite not having the same secondary that they had coming into last season. So I just like the vibes on this football team. I think they've been a little bit more consistent than Kansas has been so far this season. So I like the Wildcats to cover the spread here against the Jayhawks.
Yeah, struggled last year with Ted McMillan, which is very interesting. Mike, we're looking at a total.
Yeah, give me the over here. A lot of Big 12 games are the same, particularly with Kansas. They essentially either score 40 points or allow 40 points every week, one of the two. And in some cases, they play games in the upper 30s on both sides. And that's what I think we get here ultimately. I think that they're going to have some success moving the football. And will they turn it into touchdowns or not? I think they probably will for most of the game. But I'm very confident Arizona does the same thing right back down the field. Classic Big 12 game here. It's a big total. I really do believe that it should be 58.5, 59.5. So give me the over.
Tom, you agree you're also on the over. That's 2 votes for over 56.5.
Yeah, I'm with Mike here. I'm a little disappointed this game's not on at 10:30 Eastern time because this has all the makings of a wild one that you watch late at night, and it's stuck in the 3:30 time slot. But I think it's going to be a heck of a football game to watch. I think both offenses are going to have success here, and I would be surprised if they don't if this game's not played into the 60s or higher.
I love those 10:30 starts, 10 o'clock starts. Sometimes we'll get an 11 o'clock start. Always fun to try to win some money back or maybe stack on top of your stack with a late game on Saturday night. All right, let's go to Iowa State at TCU. This one, we've got a 6.5-point spread for TCU hosting, 57.5-point spread. Tom, I'll start with you. What's the play?
Yeah, so I gave this out last Friday at -3, which I never do because it's at one book and it's kind of capped. But I had this spot circled for TCU and I was like -3. I had it -7, and I was worried. Well, what if Iowa State gets upset at home by Arizona State, which they did? So now the line is 6.5. So because I gave it out at SportsLine at -3, I'm going to take a different approach here and give out the TCU team total over 31.5. Iowa State's been struggling on defense since they lost both starting corners, allowing over 31 points a game. TCU averages over 38 at home. So I think win or lose, TCU has success offensively on Saturday.
Yeah, notable that you gave that out on Sportsline. And of course, the line doubled. But if you're a Sportsline member, you would have gotten that play as soon as Tom gave it out. And then you came onto the early edge a couple of mornings ago on the Sportsline YouTube channel and gave out this team total. So good stuff there. All right, Mike, we're headed with TCU here. We're laying the 6.5 points, right?
Yeah, I would still lay the 6.5 here with TCU. I think this is a double-digit win. Look, I've been pretty down on Iowa State all year and started from the very first week of the season, just talking about how difficult it can be in the Big 12 when you've got elite wide receiver talent. Losing wide receivers to the NFL can be a big, big deal, and that's shown for Iowa State. Offensively, they have just not clicked. Down to 102nd in terms of EPA per play offensively, and most of it is because of the passing game. And the problem is we know TCU can score, which means you're very likely going to have to be throwing the football often here. That's where Iowa State's had trouble all season. I think TCU runs away with this one.
All right. Is it 3 for 3, Emory? Is it TCU?
Yeah, when you look at this Iowa State team, the excellent team we saw earlier in the season, that team doesn't exist anymore, like PB Max and Chunky. So I will lay the 6.5 with TCU. And those are two candies, by the way, they were phenomenal that you may have to go Google because, again, you don't know what you're talking about. Whoever made that list to make Kit Kat number 2. But when you look at TCU, they're still making this thing a track meet. I feel as though they'll get out of the blocks early and keep their foot on the gas against the Cyclones.
You bring up a good point about the candy bracket. I didn't do those seedings. It was somebody else. They have Twizzlers as a number 2 seed, which is obviously ridiculous. We're all shaking our head at that one, but there's some good properly seeded candies in there as well. All right. Well, speaking of seeded teams, we got to get to the SEC because we got number 5 Georgia, we got Mississippi State, Texas A&M, and Missouri. A lot of SEC games to cover, including, of course, Auburn, Vanderbilt, and LSU-Alabama. A lot to come on the early edge. It's time to dive into the SEC bets for week 11. We're going to start with Georgia and Mississippi State. Georgia laying 7.5 points on the road, ranked number 5 here with the new rankings. Tom, I'm going to start with you. What's the play in this one? I'll mention it's a 57.5 point total.
I'm going to go over. Mississippi State's, been an over team this year. Their defense struggles to stop better offenses. I think you could see a game similar to Texas, not where Mississippi State's up by 17 late and blows the game, but where they start fast. But Georgia has shown that offense can get rolling even if they get behind. So I think it's going to be an entertaining half. We'll see if that goes into the second half, but I do expect this game to go over 57.5 points.
All right, Mike, we're laying the points with Georgia.
Yeah, I like Georgia. Look, I lost on them last week. They could have easily covered. They elected not to cover, to just put the game away, which is fine. Never get upset in those situations. It's what they should do, to win football games. So I think they pull away here in this one, though, and they'll find themselves in that situation. Yes, it's difficult to have road games like this in a row, but Georgia is definitely the better team. And Tom kind of mentioned the ability for the offense to get rolling really no matter how things are going. That's what's been impressive to me for Georgia. They fall behind, they don't panic, they get out there and they still have the ability to go play offensively. That's what I see here. I see a little bit of a back and forth game early and one where Georgia just simply is too much late. Mississippi State has made a lot of improvements, frankly. They've been a lot better this season than they were a year ago. They're still a mile behind in the SEC, as evident by the 1-4 conference record. Georgia pulls away here. Spread should be 10 in this one.
Oh, very interesting. Spread should be 10. So we got a little bit of wiggle room here with the 7.5. But Emory, you agree with Tom. You like points in this game.
Yeah, and it's been because Mississippi State has been scrappy this year. They'll fight to the end, and sometimes in a losing effort, but they will score points, and their defense will give a lot of points. So I could see this one where all of our bets cash, where they can lose by 10.5 or more than 10.5, like Mike suggested, and also cover this total or go over this total because Georgia's going to put up 35, 40 points, and we know their defense will put a hold on it at some point in time. They'll probably give up 20, but at the end of the day, that helps us cash this over.
Let's go to Texas A&M. Number 3, Texas A&M, at Missouri, 48.5 point total. Emory, this line, I feel like Missouri's 22nd ranked in the country here. This line, I'm telling you, it's baiting me into taking Texas A&M. Tell me what to do here.
Take Texas A&M because Bo Perbula is not at quarterback for Missouri, and even if he was, this offense was struggling. Missouri has survived because their defense is excellent, right? Their offense was trying to figure things out. In some games, they look good. Other games, they look, not well equipped to be out there on the field. And they're facing who I think is the second best team in college football in Texas A&M. No one wants to face this football team that can beat you up physically at the point of attack on both sides of the ball and are explosive at quarterback and in the backfield with all those backs they got and Casey Concepcion out there at wide receiver. So this team will, just beat the brakes off Missouri. So this 5.5, I guess, is a steal now before it jumps up to double digits.
Tom, talk to me about an under in this one.
Yeah, I think Emory hit it on the head. Missouri's defense has been excellent. They have no starting quarterback, so I think they're going to struggle offensively. But I think their defense is going to play well and keep them in this game for a while. We'll have to see. It's all going to be, can their offense get first downs? Can they keep drives alive? If they're gonna compete with cover in the spread. But I do think this could be an ugly kind of game for Texas A&M. Win this one maybe 27-14, 27-17 in that range. But at 48.5 just feels a little bit high given where Missouri's strengths are and that they don't have their starting quarterback.
Mike, it sounds like you agree, or at least I'm cheating and I'm looking ahead. It seems like you agree that this is kind of more of a scrappy, maybe an ugly game.
Yeah, I think it's a scrappy, ugly game, and I think you're just through a lot of key numbers still on totals. So I think that this game probably should be about 45, between that 44, 45 number. When I look at Missouri, they have been awesome defensively. It's a home game, which I think matters a lot. It's still a spot for Texas A&M to ultimately have to travel, but if they're Missouri here, I think they can really rely on that defense. I don't think the quarterback situation is as bad as advertised. I think they will have an extremely conservative game plan early and just try and get this game to the latter stages with a shot to go take advantage and maybe win it. All those things lead me to an under in this one, though, so under 48.5.
All right, let's move. Auburn at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt coming off their loss. 6.5 point favorites at home. This one's Saturday at 4 o'clock. Tom, the total here again is 40. Oh, it's 48.5 now. So oh no, I'm looking at the wrong game. Auburn Vanderbilt. Okay, so the total's 45.5. The line 6.5. Tom, what are we betting in this one?
Yeah, listen, I love me a good coaching change and betting that team in the first game where they fire the coach because I think the players get up for that. But I worry about this Auburn team right now. The program seems like it's kind of in disarray, so I don't know if a coaching change is going to matter there. Vanderbilt coming off a loss is what tips it for me. If they had won last week and maybe we're overlooking Auburn a little bit, but I think they're focused and they get it done at home.
Yeah, if you like coaching change narratives, we've got LSU-Bama coming up in just a second. So we'll see if that holds true for you, Tom. Emory, we're also on Vanderbilt here.
Yeah, Vanderbilt will more than likely tackle better in this ball game than they did against Texas, which was awful display of tackling, which helped them, get down pretty quickly, 7-0 to the Longhorns. And when you don't have leadership, and even with the head coach, it felt like Auburn doesn't have leadership. A rudderless ship doesn't go anywhere. It kind of stays the same. So I expect this team to look exactly how it looked last week when they had Hugh Freeze. And thus, I like Vanderbilt to take advantage and win by double digits and get back on the winning track to prove that they belong in this college football playoff conversation.
Mike, you like Vanderbilt, but it's in a slightly different way. You like them to score some points.
Yeah, going to isolate that team total. Caught the number here, 26.5. I think we all can understand how, key numbers like 27 and 28 become in the game of football here. And when you talk about Vandy coming off the loss, season's not over yet. They still have a lot to play for, and I think they have a lot to prove. And I think style points might matter a little bit. I think that if they can come out and have some convincing wins, that's really what's needed here. And when you've got the home environment, Diego Pavia, I think he can do enough. But Auburn, the question mark for me is just the issue. While it's been coaching a little bit, they don't have a quarterback. They don't have an offense. And if you can't move the football here, you're not giving Diego Pavia and company short fields and not giving up at least 27 points in this game. So give me the team total for Vandy over 26.5.
I'm really intrigued to see how Vanderbilt bounces back. And I feel like the 6.5 is a little too short. I like that team total play as well, Mike, especially keying in on those key numbers short of 27. Let's go to LSU at Alabama. Tom, I got to go right back to you because we're talking about coaching changes and we're talking about maybe a new coach bump. This is a 10.5 point spread. Bama laying the 10.5, 49.5 point total. Are we on LSU?
Yeah, this one's a little bit different for me because LSU gets to play, a rival, and a rival who's competing for a national championship. And listen, here's the thing. Whatever you think about Brian Kelly as a head coach, he's not a very likable person, right? And I don't know how many of those players like playing for him. And I know from experience, listen, when you have a head coach that nobody likes, the kids can't wait for the season to end. They can't wait to go play basketball. So I think no Brian Kelly, I think there's a big lift off these kids' shoulders, and they go out, they play loose, they give Alabama all they can. I think Alabama sneaks out with a win, but LSU covers the big spread close into the fourth quarter.
Mike, you agree? You're taking the points here.
Yeah, especially at 10.5. You'll find this in the market bouncing between 9.5, 10.5. I could definitely still see the margin being right at 10, but ultimately I think it could be closer to a touchdown. And I get that it's probably an uncomfortable click for a lot of people because is there a scenario that LSU doesn't show up at all and they lose by 30? Absolutely. That is definitely on the table. I just think that they're still not that bad of a team. You look at, yes, they've got 3 losses. Every loss they had was to a top 10 team at the time that they lost the game. It's not going to happen for them this year, even if they win this game and Oklahoma. But we weren't far removed from still talking about 3-loss SEC teams getting in. And if they ran the table somehow, they'd be a 3-loss SEC team with all 3 losses being top 10 opponents. Like this, yes, the sentiment is low. Brian Kelly was not a good fit there. They're still not a terrible football team here. And this is a spot where I think Alabama just escapes narrowly with the win.
Emory, you're on the other side. You're on the side of kick a team while it's down. No head coach change bump here.
Right. But the guys that are a part of why this team is so talented are still there. One being an interim head coach in Frank Wilson and assistant head coach and wide receiver coach Cortez Hankton are 2 outstanding recruiters and a big reason why they got who they got on that roster. So we will see a bump in play from LSU. The problem is the quarterback will still be a detriment collectively to team success. So I could see them playing inspired ball, close ball, but at the end of the day, Ty Simpson and the Alabama offense will do enough to cover the spread here.
Tom, real quick, I want to go to the quarterback on the other side for LSU because we talk about Ty Simpson, but Nussmeier, I wonder if this coaching change specifically helps him. Any thoughts there? Because we think in the context of a team bump, but perhaps are we going to see the LSU quarterback we thought we were going to see coming into the season, or at least parts of that in this Bama game?
Yeah, I think we could. As Emory said, he hasn't played that well this season, and it's not just like pressure. He's made some bad decisions. So we'll see. Listen, he's playing and LSU's playing with house money this week, right? It's they fired their coach. They have nothing to lose, and sometimes a talented team for 1 week, when you play that way, good things happen. So I think it's going to be an interesting game. But yeah, I expect Nussmeier to have a pretty good game this week.
All right. Very interested in this one. A lot of games that I'm going to be keyed in on that we've already discussed. This one, 7:30 on a Saturday night. We still have our best bets to cover, our dogs of the week to cover. We'll do it all with Emory, with Tom, with Mike right after these messages. Well, I'm coming to learn that we can't get enough of this candy bracket. So maybe we'll get to that later on the show before we get out of here. But here's the best bets records update. Listen, Emory kind of even. We've got Mike 12-7-1, and Tom's giving out winners, but he's not giving out winners with his best bets, down a handful of units there. But let's rebound. Let's get to our best bets for Week 11. And Emory, I'm going to start with you.
How about we start with Kennesaw State, the new America's team, who have now found their bowl eligibility in their second season of FBS play with new football coach Jerry Mack. I will lay the points here versus New Mexico State. They have quite possibly one of the worst quarterback situations in college football. I think we'll see the Owls take care of business, and we'll stay out west or further west between Hawaii and San Diego State, who has, it's funny because we talk college football playoff and people gloss over the potential of a 12-1 San Diego State football team. Now, they lost a game to Washington State early in the year, but they've been on a tear. I like them here in this spot versus Hawaii because of their defense. I feel comfortable in laying the points with the Aztecs.
You talk about New Mexico State. I had a bet on them a couple of weeks ago, and Logan Fife just was throwing the ball to the other team. Even when he tried to throw it away, literally tried to throw it away, he threw it to the other team. So, yeah, that's not the best quarterback situation there. Mike McClure, how about a couple of best bets?
Give me Oregon -6. I like Oregon a lot here. I know it's a tough road environment against Iowa. I don't think Iowa can score enough points here. Again, if Oregon gets to 20 in this game, I feel very good about them being able to cover the spread. Oregon's been fantastic defensively this season, really overall. Again, I make them a top 3 team in college football in terms of EPA per play. I know they've lost a couple of tight little spots overall, but I like this team a lot. I think that they take care of business. I think Lanning has them focused, and ultimately, I think that they're able to limit what Iowa can do here offensively.
All right, and then the next one up is Missouri. We're taking the points here.
Yes. Now I'll be very specific on this. You can find numbers at 6.5 all the way up to 7.5 in the market. Not often you see that big of discrepancy. It'll typically settle at 7. I would not play this at 6.5. I like it quite a bit, and obviously giving it as a best bet at the 7.5 -115. Quarterback situation is clearly the story here for Missouri. Down to a backup. A lot to replace. However, still a really talented backup. Was a top 10 quarterback in this recruiting class to begin with. I think he's got enough tools to be successful here. The biggest tool being the defense that he has on his team, right? Missouri has been so good defensively. I think that this game's going to be a little lower scoring, points at a premium. I think Missouri doesn't get blown out in this game. I think it's a field goal game either way. So give me Missouri plus 7.5 here.
All right, Tom, let's rebound. What are the best bets for Week 11?
Yeah, so listen, I'm 4-12, so no one cares about my analysis at this point. I'm going to tell you a story instead. These best bets have been causing me all kinds of anxiety all season. I'm losing sleep over them. So the last time I'm on the show, I give out Mississippi plus 7.5 against Georgia. First of all, imagine losing that game. But towards the end of the game, I'm at my son's youth football game, and I'm following it, on my phone, and I see Georgia kicks the field goal with a minute left to go up 8 to cover for the first time all day. So I got this look on my face like Matt Damon in Rounders when he loses the money to Teddy KGB. I got people coming up asking if I'm okay, and I think to myself, this has to be the lowest point. It just has to be. Like, how could I lose that game? So, plus it's college basketball season, and if I lose in college basketball, people lose their homes. So all the pressure is off me this week. I'm feeling good. First of all, I apologize, Mike. I got Oregon -6 with you, so you can't feel great about that. But I'm feeling a good week coming. Oregon -6. And again, I took TCU -3. It's tough to give out the same game at -6.5 as a best bet. So I'll go over their team total 31.5.
And again, to your credit, you gave out the -3 when the line opened at some major sports books, and people could have followed that if they were SportsLine members, which I'm sure most people watching are. All right, let's recap our best bets. Emory Hunt, Kennesaw State -8.5, San Diego State -6.5, Tom Casale, Oregon -6, and TCU team total over 31.5. Mike McClure, Oregon -6, and Missouri specifically +7.5. He's not really interested in playing it as much at 6.5, but +7.5 on Missouri. How about our underdog bets of the week? Tom, this time I start with you, and I think our producer is really going to like this pick.
Yeah, well, my underdog bet of the week is Butterfinger as a 16 seed in your candy bracket. But since I can't give that lock of the decade out, I'm going to go Temple, getting point almost a touchdown against Army. I think Temple, they're still undervalued in the market, and they played Navy in a game they should have won. They lost 32-31. So while the offenses aren't the exact same, at least they've seen this type of option offense once this year. And you look at Army, listen, they beat Air Force. Air Force is just terrible right now. They beat Charlotte. They beat UAB. I think Temple's a step up in class here. I think this is going to be a really tight game, and the Owls have a chance to steal it in the fourth quarter.
All right. Some sort of Sharon was in my ear, some sort of fight song. It was kind of lame, if I'm going to be honest, and I don't want to repeat it. So I'm just going to move along. Let's go to Mike. Talk to me about your underdog play of the week.
Yeah, back to the first quarter shenanigans here. How about Penn State first quarter money line +255? Reminder, the bet is returned to you if this would end in a tie at the end of one. The path to Penn State being competitive here, whether you're talking covering the big spread, winning the game outright, whatever it is, it's having a fast start. They're not going to fall behind and come back in this particular matchup. I like it this spot for them, though. It's kind of the last big spot of the year. They're at home. It's an early start. I think the defense can show up enough and ultimately have a decent shot of winning this first quarter with a slower start from Indiana. Indiana's talent, offensively particularly, will win out over the course of 4 quarters. But give me Penn State here +255 in the first quarter.
All right. Emory, talk to me about Delaware at +172.
2 factors here at play. You have a Delaware team that's very good on both sides of the ball, especially on offense, so they can score. They have that ability. And secondly, and most importantly, you have dudes from Louisiana going north of the Mason-Dixon line, and it's going to be windy and cool out there, especially cold to them. Oh, no, this spells La Tech's going to get beat out there in the first state. So I'm taking Delaware +178 to win that one outright.
Now, a lot of people think Delaware is a talented team. They just haven't really, relative to what people might think Delaware is. They just haven't really put it together a lot this season. I like that play quite a bit. All right, we got about 60 seconds left. Emory, we've been talking during the breaks about the candy bracket. Is there a candy? I don't know, you haven't had a chance to look at the bracket fully yet, but do you have a favorite candy that you received on Halloween, or maybe an underrated candy that people just need to know about?
Snickers is going to run through this bracket like Sherman did Atlanta, like the 1990 Running Red Rebels of UNLV basketball team. That is the best candy ever, bar none, which was also a good candy, by the way, bar none by far.
Yeah, interesting. They're in the Mars bracket I'm seeing here, and they don't really have any tough matchups until maybe they get to Reese's Pieces, which is interesting. Do we have an underrated candy, Tom Casale?
Well, I'm just happy I heard the 1990 UNLV Running Rebels on the show. That's my favorite sports team ever. Thank you, Emory. I like Heath. Give me Heath, underrated candy. I like them to make a run.
Mike, underrated candy, favorite candy, what you got?
The favorite candy is the chalk for me. It's still the Reese's Peanut Butter Cup. I can't get over Kit Kat and Twizzlers being 2 seeds.
So bad.
Talk about an upset bracket. This thing's going to get ugly for those guys.
I can't wait to break it all down. Reese's Cups, the #1 seed in the Hershey region. Ladies and gentlemen, that was a great show. Not so much thanks to me, but thanks to those 3. Big thanks to Emory, Tom, and Mike McClure. You can also find them on the Early Edge on the SportsLine YouTube channel Monday through Friday at 10 o'clock. And oh, by the way, we've got the NFL Picks show coming up next on this channel. Have a great day, everybody.